have papers signed, if you let anybody have it, that it was for an animal. DMSO is a great thing. In fact, I had had concussion of the brain in one of my automobile accidents, and the concussion on this side had caused paralysis on this side of my body. And so I was in a collision because I had run off the road when this thing had blanked out on me, and they had to haul me home lying down in a station wagon from the other part of the state. I had gone to a doctor, a naturopathic, he was an old-fashioned one, and he had found out what was wrong with me by feeling my skull. And he found out that I had a blockage here, calcium, like a stalagmite or stalactite was down in here, and had shut off my brain power and had paralyzed one half of my body and my sight. So they hauled me home several hundred miles in this wagon, and the thing that we used was DMSO. And the DMSO dissolved this calcium and made it so that I was back in action again. Well, I know how great it is and the many wonderful things that can be done, but there has not been enough analytical done on that I can speak authoritatively on it. A little while ago I was using it on my, you see, after standing as many years as I have, it's only been recently in the last year or two that I've done sitting while I have been lecturing, because I have done 4 hours, 8 hours standing at the podium, and I've done this for many years. Well, with my arthritis in my legs and in my whole body, finally the veins all gave away in my lower legs, and I have a phlebitic condition because of this, and it just showed up in the last, 6, 8 months, and it was rough. Well, I used DMSO on it, but I used too much. Holy cow, did they break out. So all I can say, you got to use it with prudence and skill. You got to use it kind of modestly to start with and then work up. I think if anything you could, a little bit more should do better, and that isn't always the truth.
But do you think it would be wise to apply before fermentation to increase the absorption of the...
I would start with it very mildly, and build up. That's the advice I could give from what I've learned the hard way.
Is there help for someone who has psoriasis for about 30 years?
Psoriasis, pityriasis, any of these, any of your skin diseases stem from inside the body, which is a condition of poisons within the body. And that has to work from the inner part of the body. But the bone, flesh, and cartilage that we have was first given to me by inspiration for a girl that was committing suicide because she had dermatitis over her arms from the elbows down, from the legs, knees down, and from the chest up and over the head. And because she was had tried to commit suicide that morning, her mother came to try and get help. I had never had a serious condition like this in dermatitis, and I didn't know how to handle it. And I'm perfectly honest about it. When I don't know. And so I offered that quick prayer. And that whole formula for the bone, flesh, and cartilage came to me. I gave it to the lady, told her to get the herbs, make the fermentation, and use it. Now this girl had had this dermatitis for years. She had even quit school a year or two before because she had become reclusive. She stayed in, and she was eating herself to a big fat slob, and it was sad. Well, I'd never known this, so I offered the quick prayer, and when it came, I told them to do it. They made it up on a Tuesday, and they brought the girl in on a Friday, and all of this alligator scales and stuff was off. The dermatitis, everything was gone. The psoriasis, pityriasis, it was a combination, the dermatologist said. But it was off, and the pinkness was showing where the scales had shuffed off. I saw her 6 months later. She was completely healed, and she had brought her size down and was now on the cheer team for the football squad.
Fomentation at night and then drink the tea?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and it worked. Well, this bone, flesh, and cartilage, after using it for dermatitis for a period of time, someone accidentally found out that it brought a finger back on that had been cut off. Now, I could tell you these stories until morning, but we don't have the time for doing this. But this actually has brought back parts of the body. We wonder why, being the highest evolved animal on the face of the earth, that we can't grow things back on our body when birds and animals grow back wings and legs and various parts of the body that's been torn off or shot off. We can't do it? Well, we can do it with the help of the good Lord's herbs that He's given us and the right way to use them. And we have seen 3 fingers grown back where they were off below the second joint. And when they come back on, they've got the nail. They've got everything, bone and skin and flesh. The good Lord leaves the plans and specifications, and all they need is food, because they are not there now because of malnutrition. There's food put into it. We put the food in and it'll work. We've had many of these cases, 1.5 vertebrae grown back in the spine that had been eaten out with cancer of the bone. Sure, it comes back. And how does it come back? By feeding it back. The holistic program covers everything that's beneficial for mankind. But when we say we adjust bones and that'll take care of anything, that's a fallacy. When I say herbs and take care of anything, it's a fallacy. When we say anything that's beneficial that'll do good for mankind and no harm, that's beneficial.
Dr. Christopher, what about internal injection of DMSO?
This is the last question. I cannot authoritatively talk on internal injections because in my practice we do not believe in breaking the hermetically sealed skin. And we either use fomentations, poultices, oral, or injections through open areas such as the anus, the mouth, the ears, so forth and so on. Okay?
I wanted to make a comment on the BFC. I split my thumb open really bad, way down from Canyon on a windshield wiper.
Just a minute, before he finishes this, when he raises his hand like this, I thought he said one more.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So anyway, I was cleaning out this windshield wiper with the ice on it and split it open. Didn't have anything to stop the bleeding with except the dirty Kleenex, and so that's what I did. Held it, you know, tried to keep it from bleeding all the way down. Tried to put the cayenne on, didn't stop the bleeding, I guess because it needed to drain all that dirt out. But anyway, when we finally got it stopped with the cayenne, we tried the BFMC on it, you know, rubbing it on it, the BFMC oil. We rubbed it on every day, and it would not seal together. The wound would not go together. So I just kept putting it on even though it wouldn't seal together, and it healed from the inside out. And I got the fingerprints in the right place and everything.
All right.
It was a wide one.
Okay. Dave, tell about the fellow that his thumb went to putty? Toe.
Yeah, in our last master herbalist group, one of the students went home and made the BFC up in an oil with olive oil. And anyway, he had this toe that had crushed or something and had grown back weird. And so anyway, he thought, well, might as well try it on it. So he put the BFC oil on it, and he was rubbing it on it day in, day out, and it went to putty. I mean, it just went limp. It went limp. And so it kind of worried him, but he thought, boy, I better just keep putting it on. So he kept putting it on, and then it hardened up again in the correct position.
Wow.
Even though it had been crushed.
Tape on the last seminar.
Yes. Aren't herbs great? Huh. I mean, just give them a chance.
Dr. Christopher, Jethro Kloss recommends for certain kidney or bladder infections to insert a catheter, I think, and inject formulas that way. How do you feel about that?
No, we have been against this for years. I had a very dear friend of mine that was shipped home from the hospital with a catheter in the penis and kidney stones, gallstones. He had everything. And they told him he'd have to go back to Mayo Clinic to be operated on because he had all kinds of troubles besides his prostate problems. And he said, well, I can't even get to Murray. Well, Murray is the next town, of course. And so they sent him home with the catheter in. And he called me long distance and asked what to do. So we sent to him the kidney bladder formula, the prostate formula, and we gave him parsley to make up tea to drink his formulas down with. And in a matter of weeks, he called up. He was very happy now because from the time he was a teenager, he had had to milk the urine out. Prostatitis had been this bad since he was young. And he had lived his life this way, and he was very discouraged, and all this now accumulated so that he had the kidney stones and the prostate clogged and everything else. And so when he called me, I said, how you doing, Dave? And he said, I'm doing okay. He said, in fact, this is the first time I have had the fountain of youth. All right, and that was after the catheter had been pulled out and he had the healing. No, we're not for the catheter. If it can be worked any other way, it's used in emergency and emergency only.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Christopher, if you're unable to get the bark of a specific tree for a formula, how much, if any, of the medicinal property would be in the leaves of that tree?
All right, here's a good example. We'll take the black walnut. The black walnut bark is potent, but we'll find the leaves are about 70%, and we'll find the husk is about 112%. See? It regulates. And so it isn't only the bark in some cases. Now, in lots of cases, like the slippery elm, it is the bark, and that's it. The leaves will be minor. And so it is with many of our herbs the same way.
I have a question related to the lungs. Any lung disorder, like lobar pneumonia, pleurisy, bronchiectasis, things of that nature. Maybe you can comment on that.
Yes, this is why the cold sheet treatment, this is why our chest and lung formula, but we do have one condition called pleurisy, which isn't quite in the same category because this is the pleuric cavity with water that has gone around and is drowning the lung. We had, since the beginning of time, an herb that had been used by we who were in the know on it called the pleurisy root. And the pleurisy root, being used as a fomentation or poultice and used internally, has done miracles. And yet the pleurisy root has been outlawed by the FDA and you cannot buy it. All right, but there are plenty of other ways to take care of the lung otherwise. Get your pleurisy root and stock it up. All right.
What is pleurisy?
Pleurisy root, which comes from the pleurisy herb, and I imagine you could grow it. Just get it. It has lost its prominence because it's been discouraged.
How would you treat prostate cancer? Would you put the BFC?
No, with the prostate cancer, you've got a condition here where you'll have to go into the prostate and the kidney formulas. And in addition to that, you will have to go through the incurables routine. to get rid of this, because this has to come from the inside too. The cancer is showing itself, but it is a toxic condition within the body.
And that's all you do, the incurables, and then those 2 herbs?
That's
besides?
right.
And there's nothing you put over the area of the prostate?
If it were in the liver area, we would say the castor oil fomentation. But if it is prostate of the, or cancer of the prostate, and you can get to it, you put the bone, flesh, and cartilage over the specific area. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Dr. Christopher, if they've already had an operation and for prostate cancer, and the prostate, I guess, has been removed and everything, they don't have control of the nerve that holds back the urine, what would you use in something like that? Where they have to carry a bag around all the time? Or is it constant drip?
But the prostate has been removed. But the urethral tract is still there. All right, then your formula for kidney and bladder, using your parsley to wash it down, the bone, flesh, and cartilage over the area, and you'll get some results there.
Did you know what the cause of a noticeable reduction in breast size in certain women when they become vegetarians?
The noticeable reduction in breast size when a woman becomes a vegetarian, there won't be if the woman has followed through and used the liquids that she's supposed to use, the gallon of distilled water, etc., etc., etc. But in so many cases, this is because of malnutrition. That breast has not been fed. But really, the size of the breast isn't always a key, because it is elephantine in some cases, where we have a breast that is not all good breast. There's problems in it. So let me say this one thing. I haven't said it very often, but there have been many women who have been disgruntled with life because they are born with small breasts. And there are many who have oversized breasts. All we have to do is go back to the mammal, and whenever the cow has a baby, as a young cow, it will get a larger udder. And when the calf is growing and it doesn't need the milk anymore, the udder goes back into place again. So actually what we have for the breast is something that is needed on the human body. And whether they're small, large, or indifferent, if you are healthy, they will come to the right size.
We've seen reduction in breast size with improper weaning, like cutting off immediately instead of...
Well, this could happen here, yes. You see, when it's time to wean a baby, and we wean them again, as we say, 5 and 6, 5 and 6, at the proper time, but we wean them on vegetables and fruits, the juices. And this is the proper way, but we give them plenty. But the mother must not stop drinking. She has got to go on using her liquids, because that's one of the first places that will drop down in size. How much more time have we got, Dave? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Yes.
If someone has had their thyroid removed, what could you give them if they wanted to get off drugs?
If the thyroid has been removed, the number one thing we do is treat the area where the thyroid has been taken out with the glandular formula of Mullen and lobelia. We also feed the area of the body itself with the thyroid formulas, and this is the greatest help that we can give.
Mr. Christopher, there have been times when tonsils have grown back again after an operation. Is there any hope of fermentation might produce a renewal of the tonsils again?
Well, let me put it this way. I have in my throat now my 4th set of tonsils. My first set were double tonsils. I had 2 full sets, a double set of tonsils on each side. The good Lord knew how ornery I was, and he put in an extra set for good measure. But it was operated on, and of course we had in a bottle of alcohol a conversation piece on the piano, which I destroyed as soon as I found nobody home and I could ditch it. But the only set of double tonsils that had ever been found in Utah. So here we had those cut out, and they came back, and they were removed again, and they removed the 3rd time. And when I was about 14 years old, I could hardly swallow. My throat was swollen up, and my mother said, "I got to take you back to the doctor." So we went, and the doctor said, "Boy, have you got tonsils?" I said, "They've been out 3 times. He says, "Well, they're back there now. We got to cut them out again." My mother says, "Yeah, cut them out." And I says, "No, you're not." I was now 14, and I had a little bit of authority over my body, thank the Lord. And I said, "No, you're not." They're going to stay in. She says, "You'll probably choke to death or you'll starve because you can't swallow." And I says, "I'll do it." And so they stayed in. Those tonsils were needed, and they kept coming back. And tonsils, with using the glandular formula, can be helped. But when we have tonsillitis, the finest thing in all the world is to cut the individual off of solid foods and give them nothing but red raspberry leaf tea and watch those tonsils go down. But at the same time, we use the formula of mullein and lobelia on the throat and help do a rapid glandular healing here. When this program is done, those tonsils will go down, and they do not have to be cut out.
When their thyroid is removed, is that you put the mullein and lobelia on the outside?
On the outside, and drink it also.
They can't go on that thyroid formula and give up the one that they're on?
We've seen it done. We have seen it done.
Dr. Christopher, we've found that liquid dulse is extremely potent, and if they're on 3 grains of thyroid, we can put them on 1 dropper full, which would equal about 1 dropper full equals 1 grain. So we put them on 3 a day, and they seem to transition very well. 1 dropper full would equal like 20 kelp tablets, which is pretty hard on the liver to take 60 a day. And
of liquid dulse.
3 liquid dulse droppers.
Now that's good. Some people can take dulse, some people can take kelp. Some people can't take either, but in most cases, this would be the easiest way. And I like that. Thank you.
You know, with the thyroid formula, you know, they always have to be so careful that they get it right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they take the synthetic, because she doesn't have any. Now, can she just, is there instructions on this, or just plain take it?
Well, this happens to be an organic. When you're taking your liquid dulse, you take as much as you need and throw off the balance.
Would she know by the way she
But if you'll follow the instructions, you'll have the approximate amount. You go up a little or under a little. Just don't overdo it. You had a question back here?
One more question.
One more question. Right here?
Dr. Christopher, a little while ago we talked about taking a person through the transition from pharmaceutics to herbs, and you do it gradually. Would that also apply to women that are on hormone pills?
We've had many cases that are on hormone pills that have stopped now and gone on into our hormone estrogen herbal and had results. It takes sometimes a little while. But I remember one woman up in the Northwest that was climbing the wall, and I mean throwing covers, and her husband was about ready to give her away, and she switched from the inorganics and came to the hormone estrogen formula, and when she got into the swing of it, She started to sleep all night, every night. She didn't throw the covers, and she was such that the husband said he was going to keep her around. Well, we have seen many cases of this. So let's go back to the natural way. Let's live close to God, and let's be happy we've got herbs. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.